But here in the United States, I don't feel like we have a problem economically. I feel like we have a discipline problem.
Try to live well and prosper. Don't trust your doctor. Ruthless with my wordplay. No, I'm not a shotter, but I got them hits, man, coming straight out the barrio. That's why I'm hip hop sicario. I like my privacy. I show out every now and.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rolo Runs the City podcast. I am your host, Rolo, and I am glad to be back with you guys, man. I greatly do appreciate you guys checking me out, checking out all my material and everything, and I am in full gratitude mode to you guys, so I greatly do appreciate everything that you guys do. Yeah, I know it's been a minute, but of course, we're trying to catch some things up, trying to finalize some projects that's coming for the upcoming year, and, trying to do the best that I can to have more in store for you guys. And with that being said, feel free definitely to check me out at RoloRunsTheCity.com. I got my merch, and that's already been launched, so please feel free to check out RoloRunsTheCity.com, as well as my socials. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at RoloRunsTheCity Music, also as well as Rolo Runs the City Podcast. And of course, if you just put Rolo Runs the City, you're going to run into either or, so definitely do that. You'll be able to find me on the YouTube at Rolo Runs the City for the video content, as well as X, formerly known as Twitter, at Rolo Runs the City. And not to forget, you guys can actually stream me wherever, whenever, on all streaming platforms. Just hit up Rolo Runs the City. You're either going to get the podcast or the music, so please feel free to listen to both. But without further ado, I found a topic that was very interesting that I wanted to put out this week. It's so relevant to, today's landscape in reference to, our financial economy, things of that nature. And the reason why I say that is because things may seem to be a little bit more harder than ever in reference to inflation not going down as fast as we are hoping. But I do say this, I could buy an 18 count of eggs for like $2.97 as opposed to paying $8.97 like I was paying this time last year. So with that being said, things have gotten better, but is there still room for improvement? Absolutely, there is. So, at the end of the day, what it comes down to, it just comes down to basically mindset. And this subject was very near and dear to my heart, just like all of them are. But I just wanted to bring this guy out to you guys to the forefront because of the fact that there are people going through real situations, real people are hurting, and they don't realize they have more control than what they think. So, of course, this episode is titled From Debt to Dynasty. And I wanted to do this because I don't really watch sports like the way I used to. However, I was so engulfed into sports as a young man, even into adulthood, But one thing that I found that was very interesting in sports, well, actually two things, of course, the mindset that it takes to be a champion, as well as the financial aspects of what it takes to run a team, as well as what you got to pay your staff, your players, just the whole nine. It was just very interesting to me. And I also look at America's economy. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we're about $38 trillion in debt. But turns out that we are in $30 trillion in debt solely alone to the U.S., which is like to ourselves. So with that being said, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper on why we can be able to fix these things on a personal level. And it'd be nice if our government could try to replicate it. But like I said, we can only control the controllables. And of course, you can't control the external, but you can control the internal. And whatever happens to you is solely based on the decisions that you make. So with that being said, I'm just going to come out and say it, man. You can't win championships when you're over the salary cap. And the reason why I say that is because you're being a financial prisoner because you can't afford to move freely. And at the end of the day, when you're a financial prisoner and you can't afford to move freely, you have to remember it's all your fault. And It's all because you're a slave to your emotions. And the reason why I say that is because so many people make so many financial decisions based on how they feel at that time. And I'm a victim of this too. I am well aware of it. I mean, I will tell you this from the simplest, transactions, to be quite honest with you. I mean, it's Saturday afternoon. We finished playing ball. I coach my Miracle League team. And, my son, he's happy. He had a great game. My wife's happy. He's like, all right, guys, well, let's go out to eat. That's riding high off an emotion that you just went ahead and had a great afternoon of playing some ball, and now you want to go out to eat. Clearly, while you got plenty of food at home, but you want to go out to eat. And it's not like the food is cheap. I mean, heck, if you're lucky, you'll probably spend like 37, 38 bucks for like a dinner for three at Burger King, which is absolutely bananas. If you want to recall back in the 80s and 90s of when you used to go to Burger King and you can buy a Whopper meal for $4.39. I remember those days. I mean, there were some prices that were even cheaper at that point. I'm just using that as a price point, but then again, that goes to show you my age. But with that being said, inflation is crazy, and obviously we're all victims of it. It is what it is. And that's something that we need to overcome. But the only way to overcome that is overcoming your emotions and not to be a slave to your emotions. And I understand that sometimes some instances we're riding high, and I do believe that we can have and exercise some sort of self-control if we understand we can reel it back in, and we can still have a great afternoon and not have to blow our wad on some outing that's going to actually make your pocket slimmer and your waistline fatter. So it's not the greatest of all meals anyway. I'm just using the Burger King as an example, but it doesn't matter where you go. At the end of the day, these folks aren't feeding you with clean oils. It's not like they're frying their stuff in olive oil and making sure that, hey, let's make sure we don't over fry it so then that way we don't kill the chemical that actually helps improve health. No, they're cooking in cheap vegetable oils, cheap corn oils, and then we're wondering why we have an obesity epidemic in the United States. Well, there you go. I just solved that real quick. So you're welcome. Anyway, but, like I said, people that feel financially stuck, and, a lot of folks want to level up, and it's no different than a sports team that wants to get good talent, but they're paying old contracts. And now let me go ahead and relate that to you really quick so that way you can get a good understanding of what I mean. Okay, and I'm going to just use this for example, right? I believe it's Tyronn Lue, who used to coach the Cleveland Cavaliers. When he stopped coaching the Cleveland Cavaliers, he made sure that he put into his contract that no matter what was going on, whether if he was going to have his job or not, he was going to be guaranteed pay, and he didn't want it in a lump sum. He wanted to make sure that it was getting paid over a duration. So whether if he was coaching that team or not, he was still pretty much an employee without working. So that's how that worked out. And let's not forget Bobby Bonilla, which is the greatest heist of all time in Major League Baseball, where he consistently got paid. I believe, I don't want to mess the numbers up, but I definitely know he got paid more than 10 years after he finished playing for the Mets. And with that being said, it's the same thing with credit cards, okay? Same thing with high interest loans. It's the same exact thing. It may serve a purpose in the meantime, but then next thing you know, you're strapped for cash because you're still paying on something that's no longer producing. And I think that's where the problem is. The problem is that we get so emotional, we get so caught up, I want this now, I want that now, and it's all about instant gratification as opposed to trusting the process, being patient. Yes, tomorrow's not guaranteed. However, when tomorrow gets here, what are you going to do? And you don't want to be in a situation where you're like, man, I'm paying on this loan, I'm paying on that loan. I mean, it's crazy. It's bananas, okay? I know there's a lot of fraud that's going on right now, right? But I get calls every day, obviously, because my stuff has probably been leaked out to a third party, right? Thanks a lot, Facebook. Anyway, but, it is what it is. Next thing you know, they're calling me and they're saying, yeah, you're pre-approved for a loan for $64,000 on a 36-month term, paying $1,730 something a month, and it's absolutely crazy. Now, of course, I have to be financially disciplined and not fall for that crap, first of all, because we don't know whether, there's a lot of scammers and stuff out here, but there's also a lot of financial institutions that were not giving out loans because of everything that was going on economically here in the U.S. But now they're like, okay, we're lowering interest rates and everything. So now they're trying to sell their loans. At the end of the day, they're selling you money. Understand that. So with them selling you money, obviously you're going to have to pay interest. So with that being said, you have to make sure that you're financially disciplined to understand that you don't go ahead and look at the carrot, the golden carrot that's waving at you, and understand that that man may be holding something behind his back, and what it is it's a big old slap in the face of heavy interest, because obviously these institutions make money off of you borrowing it. And then on top of that, the bad part about it is at the rate of return that folks are getting that are holding their money in these institutions are nowhere near what the banks, credit unions, whoever's lending you money is collecting. So I think it's absolutely imperative to ensure that you don't put yourself in a financial trap because you're looking at what's in front of you right now. Somebody says, oh, 60 something grand. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and take that. And then next thing you know, it's like, yeah, buddy, but you got to pay almost $2,000 on that for the next 3 or 4 years. And how much money is that institution making? And on top of that, where are you going to be hurting? You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're absolutely going to be hurting everywhere. It's not totally like where specifically, it's everywhere, especially in your heart. So make sure you keep that in mind. But, at the end of the day, when your life is looking at stuff in reference to how do I handle this situation, you have to see, I mean, man, think about it, man, right? You really have to see that there's a game being played. And you have to understand in your life, in reference to, like, let's say the salary cap, where are you over in the cap? Okay? And I don't mean that, like, people using it as a metaphor for, oh, yeah, you're lying or whatever. I'm not talking about that. This is not a hip-hop episode. This is a financial episode. But in that salary cap of life, like, where are you over? Like, are you really messed up financially? Like, are you just taking out unnecessary loans, scared that something that may happen in the future that's probably not going to happen? Like, oh, but what if I'm traveling and this happens? And I know I've been a victim of that too, where I'm like, I want to make sure that I'm financially secure. So then that way, if something happens, if I'm on the road, I can go ahead and make sure I take care of it, make sure our family gets home safe, or get to our destination safe, do what we need to do. But at the end of the day, if you can't afford to travel or do anything of that nature, then just hold off and wait until you're able to actually make that move. Another thing, relationships, family. I mean, are you over the cap on that? I mean, are we taking our relationships for granted? Are we not giving them enough sweat equity that it deserves? Like, I know for me, it's very important to make sure that I have plenty of family time for my family. I know I'm consistently busy doing several different projects, but at the same time, I want to make sure that they are my priority. And this is the reason why I do what I do. It's the same thing with my wife. My wife is very busy and she's working consistently 6 days a week. She works over 17, 18 hours a day. This is not a lie. This is absolute facts. But at the end of the day, we understand that we have a job to do and we want to make sure we execute on that. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we give each other the love that we deserve, because at the end of the day, that's what we're working for. And if you don't realize what you're working for, then what are you doing? As well as your health, giving your health the proper attention that it needs. A lot of people, because we're always on the go, they're just shoving stuff in their mouth. Doesn't matter what it is, what kind of chemical they're intaking, I mean, you guys are pretty much eating cardboard, especially if you eat from McDonald's. I'm sorry. You could call it shade, whatever you want. It is what it is. But it's trash. Don't eat it. And of course, spiritually, when was the last time you actually got down on your knees and actually made sure that you gave your undivided attention to Christ, Allah, Buddha, the universe, like I said, whatever it is, your higher being, whatever it is that you believe in? When was the last time that you actually paid that attention and had that connection with your creator? You want to make sure you're not lacking at that, as well. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean by where are you over in the salary cap of life? Because I know that many people are not operating under the salary cap, which will be within the parameters, doing what they're supposed to do. Much like their finances, everything else hurts. It trickles down. It's just like when you work out. When you work out and your body's strong, everything happens to trickle down and it becomes a byproduct of your workout. So with that being said, make sure you're working out as well. But, let's talk about salary cap issues, paying, huge contracts for players that don't produce, much like high interest credit cards and loans. Like I said, it's only good for the temporary. It's only good for the meantime. You could be like, oh, okay, well, I got this credit right here. And it's cool if you were operating off a credit and you're getting cash back and you're like, okay, well, I'm earning 3 to 5% cash back, even 1% or 2% cash back. It's okay because at the end of the day, it seems like you're getting it at a discounted rate, and that's fine as long as you're not carrying over a balance. And that way you could utilize that leverage and use that credit card company for what it's worth. So then that way you can accumulate some sort of capital off of basic purchases that you're using anyway, that you're doing. It is what it is. I mean, it's simple math, but you want to make sure that you're not carrying over any sort of monthly due, because if you're carrying over a balance, next thing you know, you're not really making money, you're spending money, and it just is what it is. It all falls apart at that point. And people don't struggle due to the lack of income. They struggle due to bad decisions. And I pretty much tell a lot of people this. Anybody that we talk about when in reference to finance, I don't think we have a financial problem, especially, a world financial problem. Maybe we may have some third world countries that they just don't have the means. And that happens, right? But here in the United States, I don't feel like we have a problem economically. I feel like we have a discipline problem. And what happens is we get into a situation where we want to just consume, as opposed to being disciplined in what we have, being disciplined in who we are, and not so much being content with what you have, but just living within the parameters and living within the means of how your finances are operating, which means not living out of your means. And most of us carry car notes. Most of us, obviously, we pay mortgages. But there's a whole bunch of dumb stuff that's happening in between as well that we're not capitalizing off of. All right. And then, from that, we talk about people living from paycheck to paycheck, right? They're in survival mode, like a defense that's waiting on the offense to turn over the ball. And this is the worst scenario that you could actually be in, because if you're playing against a good offense, that defense is going to wear you down. And I'm going to tell you like this, these banking institutions, these loan companies are the most incredible offenses that you've ever seen, because they're always going to get theirs. And unfortunately, you're not going to get yours. So you need to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to get that turnover. Once you get that turnover and you play offense, then you start attacking. And the reason why I say that is because there's so many people that are accumulating so much debt and they figure, well, the nation's in debt, why can't I be? That's not the mentality to have. The mentality that you need to have is, hey, when I get this opportunity and I get this little extra, I'm going to go ahead and do what I got to do. I'm going to pay some stuff down. I'm going to get this stuff out of the way. So then that way I can free up my time. I can free up some capital. So then that way I can make better moves, as opposed to being a financial prisoner. If you're stuck in your house because you're broke, that's your problem, nobody else's but yours. And not everything has to do with money. You could always do things that are free. But at the same time, it's always nice to actually do something outside. If you're like, okay, well, I want to go to this performance here, or I like to go to go to this outing over here. And if you have the capital to do so, then you're at liberty to make that happen. But if you're broke, then you're a financial prisoner, and there's nothing that you can do about that. And of course, there is something you could do about it, but you're going to have to fix what's in the head. You're going to have to fix your mind. You're going to have to work on your mindset. And not so much saying, hey, I need a promotion. I need to do this. I need to do that. Or I need to get a side hustle. I need to get 2 jobs. I'm going to tell you just like this. And me and my wife had this talk, and we talked about this a long time ago. And we also determined 2 jobs are meant for 2 people. So don't try to do that, because you will wear yourself out and bad things happen. You either get injured or you get killed. Either or. And I'm not being extreme. I'm being absolutely honest. So many people are sleep deprived. So many people are jacked up on opioids. There's so many drunk drivers on the road. I mean, you could be like coming from your first job, going to your second job, working from 11 at night to 7 in the morning, and possibly get into a car accident from a person who does not know how to handle life. And the best way they handle it is by tapping the bottle and twisting the cap. So you don't want to end up in that situation. And you always got to remember, when you're in this situation where you're broke, you can't take risk, you can't invest, and because you're scared of fumbling a bill, it just deters everything you're trying to get done. And that's the reason why people are failing right now, because people aren't playing the game to win. They're playing not to lose. And when you play not to lose, you lose. Okay, so I'm going to bring a comparison real quick. This goes very back far to, I'm going to say, I think it was the 2017 NFL playoffs. Okay, New England was playing against Jacksonville, and New England was down 10-20 at the half. And you had Blake Bortles at quarterback, and of course you had the GOAT Tom Brady on the other side. Now, we already know what the outcome is going to be. Okay, Jacksonville was playing the game so they would not lose. You cannot trade field goals for touchdowns. So what happened? The man went dark. He went in his mode. Next thing you know, he went from man to GOAT. And the game was over, and they ended up going to the Super Bowl. And eventually, of course, they lost to the Eagles in that year. But the whole point was they played to win the game when it mattered. And what I'm saying with you is, if you're trying to just scrounge up whatever kind of money that you can possibly get just to pay off some damn bills and just barely make it, you're not playing the game to win. You're playing the game not to lose, and eventually you will lose. So you cannot, like I said, you cannot trade touchdowns with field goals. And a lot of these financial institutions, they're scoring touchdowns, man. They're scoring, they're running the score up. And you have to learn how to combat that, and you need to do the same damn thing and play some good defense. You know what good defense is? Not spending money on stuff you're not supposed to be buying. Playing good defense is being financially sound, creating a budget. Now, I ain't trying to sound crazy, and, I'm no Dave Ramsey, so I ain't saying that. I ain't saying, hey, you got to sell everything you got. Go ahead and you sell your car, sell your RV, and get on your mountain bike and go ahead and sell and deliver pizza. Like, I'm not doing that. That's not what I'm saying. Like, you don't have to do any of that. But my thing is, you have to get control of your discipline. You got to get control of your emotions. And, when you're paying off debt, it's like cutting bad contracts. People that are no longer producing for you, like I said, Tyronn Lue, Bobby Bonilla, like they were no longer with these organizations, but they were still getting a check. You know what I'm saying? It's no different than a high interest loan or, high interest on credit cards. So, we always know the motto, man, attack the smallest loans right off the bat. So then that way, or credit card debt, whatever it is, attack that first. So then that way you can start building momentum, because obviously small wins offers incredible gains to the mindset. And dude, if you got 4 or 5 different subscriptions to like Netflix, and I got Amazon Prime, and I got Hulu, and I got ESPN Plus, like dude, at the end of the day, you're sitting down and you think you're just watching TV, but in actuality, all you're doing is spending money. And guess what those folks are doing? While you're watching them and while you're consuming, they're producing, which means that they're producing content, they're producing money. And my suggestion is, if you're not watching content that's trying to make you better, like my content, then that goes to show you that you need to go ahead and reassess your strategy. You need to cancel that stuff. And whatever freed up money that you're getting, just I mean, I don't even give a damn if it's $21.99 that you done freed up from letting go of Netflix. You put that $21.99 toward another debt. Like, that's just how this thing works. And you keep hammering down, because at the end of the day, like I said, nobody's coming to save you. You're not getting no bailout. You know, Trump is not going to bail you out for no matter how bad you hope he does. Is, oh yeah, you know, tariffs and we're going to cut $2,000. They're not cutting anything, man. Think about it. Come on, let's just be real with it, right? Doge freed up X amount of dollars. Have you guys seen anything? You can say, oh yeah, you know, well, we're seeing a drop in prices. We're seeing inflation lower, and we're seeing, you know, tax season is going to be. No, it's not. The only thing that's going to get better is you. And the longer that you stay with that old narrative of waiting for the knight in shining armor to come and save you, like you're a damsel in distress, first of all, if you're a male, shame on you. And second of all, for women, don't get me wrong. Like I said, for women, you guys can hold your own, doing what you're supposed to do. You guys are incredible, especially if you're listening to me. If you're listening to me, then I already know what kind of woman you are. You know, you're doing what you're supposed to do. But at the same token, understand that you cannot live in a victim's mentality, whether if you're by yourself, whether if you're a single parent, whatever. You just need to know, hey, I am the hero of my own story, and I am going to write the narrative. Nobody else is going to write that for me. So that's all I have to say about that. But anyway, on some real stuff, man, I'm just saying, like, there's so many people who are waiting for external results, and it's not going to happen. It's only going to happen internally, and that's how you change the external. All right. And of course, with that strategy that I was talking about in reference to, you know, hammering down the debt, smallest to largest, you know, attacking those high interest loans first, you know, and just building momentum, of course, canceling subscriptions and all that. It's going to allow you to invest your money. It's going to allow you to actually build a skill, whatever you decide that you want to get into, whether if you go into a paid course or heck, you know, there's so many things online now where, I mean, YouTube, you got so many AI models that are willing to teach you. You know, why not dive into that? It allows you also to be creative. It also allows you better health, because obviously your cortisol is not going through the roof because you're not stressing out about bills anymore. And on top of that, you're able to free your time, which means that you don't have to be a slave to a job and be like, oh man, I got to be here and this and that. And I'm not saying that, hey, you could just call off and be okay, because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you have great work ethic. But if you decide you're like, I'm going to take some time off, and you're a person that's used to like getting like 8 to 10 hours of overtime every week, where it's like, well, you know what, man, I need to take a time off. And even when you take time off and you're taking that PTO and you're just getting regular base pay with no overtime, at the very best, you're able to do that and not have to worry about your bills, because you're paying it forward. You're actually been in attack mode. You've been playing offense as opposed to playing defense. And on top of that, there's so many mental blocks that once you get out of debt, you're able to just get so clear on everything. I'm talking about, you know, the planets aligning, your chakras, whatever it is you believe in, man. But on some real stuff, that does help, man. Just make sure that you do what needs to get done, so then that way you can live the best way that you could possibly live. And that's, of course, eventually debt-free. And, of course, you don't want to have to keep up with the Joneses mentality, because that is not the move. I'm going to tell you like this. Keeping up with appearances, parties, showcasing material things, all that stuff is unnecessary. Man, I'm going to tell you like this. I don't know how long it's been. It's been about, I'll be honest with you, it's been about a good 15 years. I'm not going to lie. Where I'm just like, dude, I'm not about to be a slave to these brands. Like, I can give a damn about what it is. So if you guys notice, you know, I'm not a person that's going to be, you know, rocking the latest gear and all this other stuff, or it's just not me. I'm not going to do that. It's like, at the end of the day, you have to look at yourself and say, how many billionaires do you got on? Because evidently that's what you're wearing. And now, I'm not saying in reference to buying clothing that's empowering, right? If something has a saying that you believe in, then of course it's worthy of having, right? Like if somebody has nice clothes and it says, you know, feel the power within, or it has a strong message, or even if it has a logo or icon that could feel like, man, I feel like that represents me too. But there's no way in hell, and again, it's going to sound like I'm hating, but there's no way in hell that a guy that's like this, if you're watching me on YouTube, I'm doing the Jumpman logo. There's no way in hell that that makes you feel empowered and you're walking around, you're 340 pounds talking about you are him. No, you're not. You're fat. You need to do some weight. You need to do some weight training, and you need to get on a goddamn treadmill. It is what it is. So you're not this, okay? And I know it sounds bad. I know it sounds like I'm fat shaming. Again, I'm not fat shaming. I'm calling it out. It is what it is. Get off your ass and do what you're supposed to do. And get something empowering. So if your big ass got a 4X on, it better say something empowering like, I got this, or I'm about to crush this. I'm opening up a can of whoop ass. I am unleashing the beast within. Something. But whatever you do, I don't want to see no grown-ass man, obese, just looking like a mammoth, wearing a goddamn Jordan logo on his chest. No. Do better, bro. It is what it is. Anyway, with that being said, you have to develop a championship mindset. And it doesn't matter where you are in your life. Whether if you're completely out of debt, whether if you're way down in the negative, whether if you're just breaking even, no matter what, you have to develop a championship mindset. And I always try to remind myself of this every day. And it's not so much about worrying about the future, but it's more like preparing for the future. Okay? You have to remind yourself that you have control. You have to move with intentionality, which means in everything you do, pay attention to your life. Pay attention to the way you walk. I mean, pay attention to the way you talk. Pay attention to the vibe that you give out to people. Pay attention to the vibe that you're receiving, because that's equally as important. Okay? And be confident in who you are and what you're doing. And always execute on the bigger vision. And for me, I always feel like my bigger vision is to leave this world better than I found it. Okay? And the reason why I say that is because there's so many people that are, let's be honest, we're born, many of us are born already in the negative. Whether if we're born into poverty, I mean, it could be a situation where you're born into a foster care system because mom and dad's not around for whatever reason. And I don't mean this in reference to demographic. Not at all. It's not what I'm getting at. But socioeconomic classes and people that are suffering in poverty, I mean, that's a real thing, and that attacks everybody. So I'm all about telling folks, wherever you're at, you have to make sure that you're consistently building. For those who have been well off and that we're the haves, well, I expect you to build even more, because it's not so much about you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, because there's been people that have born, and I know people that have been born with great opportunity and squandered it away. I mean, intimately, I know people that have been born in a winning situation and has chose poverty. Okay? I know this intimately. Okay? So what I'm saying is, for those people, keep on building. Build the legacy. I always tell my daughter all the time, my ceiling is your floor. Keep building. And luckily and fortunately for my children, they don't have to grow up the way I grew up or the way my wife grew up. So that's an awesome thing. But at the end of the day, it comes with intentionality. Anyway, the new year's coming. So I want you to know that I am here with you. But what is your plan? What is your plan for 2026? What do you guys got planned in reference to trying to get yourself better? That could be financially. It could be physically, mentally, emotionally, religiously, of course, spiritually, I mean. And like I said, just getting yourself in the headspace that you need to be in. Got an alarm going off. Come on, man. Anyway, well, that concludes my show. I'm very grateful for you guys checking me out this week. And I do apologize for the delay. There's a lot going on, but I am going to do the best that I can to be sure that I hit you off with some great stuff. And this was absolutely very important to me because I want to see God's people prospering at the highest level. I do not want to see people suffering unnecessarily and especially getting into their own way. Y'all take care. Godspeed. This is Rolo. And like I always say, man, be the goat, never sheep, and don't sleep on your dreams. Peace.